Well, good evening, everybody. This is the Commissioners' Our meeting of Monday, June 13th, 2022. For those of you would you like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I call this meeting to order. The first item on tonight's agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 9th, 2022.
Move passage.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion or corrections, I call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
I am going to turn this next section over to you, Jim, on the informational reports, if you would like me to do that.
Yes, the commissioners have a couple of informational reports in your packets this evening. They are information only. There's no action needed. And so if there are any questions, the staff are here to answer. But other than that, it's for your information only.
Do we need to talk about with the workshops and the upcoming stuff on there? Or is all that going to be on the next one, which is the 21st?
Right now, we're looking at a couple of workshop items coming up on the 21st. The Sheriff's Office has the proposal for body cameras and dash cameras for cruisers. We're also going to talk about the recruiting that we are, which is well underway within Cumberland County. And then we also are looking at 2 or 3 other topics that we would bring into the discussion that evening. We haven't made a decision. Only 1 out of the 2 or 3 would be brought forth. So it would be probably a 3-item agenda on the 21st.
Okay. So does everybody, you have that on your schedule for the 21st, which is a Tuesday night?
5:30?
Yeah, starting at 5:30, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, moving on. Comments from the public.
3 minutes.
And there is a 3-minute timeline on that. Before we go to the public, would you have any more comments, whether you received?
We've received 3 via email. Madam Chair, would you like me to read them?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the first one is from Thomas Nash. He says, I'm writing as a member of the Cumberland County Adult Education and Career Development Hub, a consortium of adult education programs located throughout Cumberland County. On Monday evening, you'll be hearing about our request for ARPA funds. Our grant seeks to address the acute workforce shortage exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Specifically, the Hub proposes to focus on 2 groups of people disproportionately impacted by the current economic and health crises brought on by the pandemic. Number 1, English language learners, and number 2, young adults aged 17 to 28. The Hub will take a county-wide approach to address the barriers these 2 populations face to prepare for entry, participation, and advancement in the workforce. For Wyndham Raymond Adult Education, the pandemic initially required that we switch from an all in-person learning to all remote learning. We reopened our in-person education on a very limited basis in the fall of 2020, but have retained a significant remote learning program since then based on our understanding that both students and teachers found the practice working well for them. We also re-examined our class sizes and determined that we needed to hire more teachers, part-time or possibly a full-time one, and increase advisor hours to support students through their educational journey. This grant is one of a number of strategies to build a strong complement of teachers who can address both our critical needs at this time and will allow us to continue to build a strong, sustainable program that will meet the long-term needs of our students. One of our colleagues, Anita St. Ange, will be attending Monday's meeting and will be happy to answer any questions you may have. We are all hopeful that you may consider funding this project at a level that would allow us to make a significant difference in Cumberland County. Please accept this invitation to attend our adult education graduation this Thursday night, 7 p.m. at the Wyndham High School Performing Arts Center. You're always welcome to visit our Adult Education Learning Center located behind the high school to see firsthand the type of programming that we provide. I believe all Cumberland County education programs will be more than happy to have any or all commissioners visit their programs. So that's the first comment. The second comment is from Madeline Litz. Okay. It begins with, okay, she says, I wrote to 2 commissioners from District 1 and District 2. I think that they might consider more of an award than $500,000. There are 10 programs in the CCAE hub. Some are overwhelmed with ELL/ESOI learners. Others are feeling a surge, and it's only a matter of time before the outlying areas, including my program, MSAD 61 and 72, feels the effects of increased programming and staff. Our 16 to 20 population alone has increased dramatically since COVID as well, and we've already increased our teaching hours because of the increased demand, while our local share has been decreased to decrease tax obligations for our district. Please consider more than the $500,000 on tonight's agenda. The third comment is from Linda Winton. I'm the director of Bonnie Eagle Adult Education. I cannot be at the meeting tonight as I will be testing students who wish to graduate with us on Wednesday. Our hub, consisting of 10 adult education programs, requested a reward of $2 million to expand student enrollment in our programs. The funding was to have supported 9 contracted teachers and advisors to teach English for speakers of other languages and support young adults in their pursuit of a high school diploma, those who were not able to sustain their education as a result of the pandemic. Bonnie Eagle's request would have covered $27,000 per year for 3 years for part-time English and math instructors, with benefits and an additional $10,000 per year for 3 years for scholarships for our students toward workforce training activities, such as the clinical medical assistant program we offer. We currently hire high school diploma and high school completion instructors, on an hourly basis for 2 hours per class per week with no benefits. These are evening classes. There is a need for daytime classes, as a lot of our students can attend during the day, but do not have the opportunity because our local budget cannot support these additional daytime classes. This ARPA funding would open up the doors for math and English classes in the daytime hours. Also, the majority of students who have attended our CMA class need support to pay for the tuition. I can only speak for our program, but I know that other programs in our hub are all facing the same issues. I ask that you consider fully funding the proposal to be able to support more educational programs throughout our hub in Cumberland County. Signed, Linda Winton, Director, Bonnie Eagle Adult Education. Those are the comments we've received today.
Do we have anybody from the public? I think there was one person. Okay, there's 2. Would you step up and state your name and?
Hi, thank you. My name is Liz Trice. It's very nice to be here. I actually worked here for about a decade, ending more than a decade ago, and was pleased to help create the Community Development Block Grant Program and the Early Public Health Program, which I understand is now taking flight, and the assessor's office. So I'm really happy to be here wearing a different hat tonight. I've been working on building workforce housing here in Portland. At the beginning of the pandemic, the city of Portland put out an RFP with 4 properties saying we need more workforce housing in Portland and asked for innovative proposals. I worked with a team called Maine Cooperative Development Partners to put together proposals, and the city chose to work with us on 3 out of their 4 parcels. At this point in the process, we have 200 units of housing in development, primarily to serve households making between 60 and 100% of area median income. So that means right now for a family of 4 making between $60,000 and $100,000. We are building highly energy efficient housing. We're building in 2 sites. One is off Douglas Street, where there's a skate park and some playing fields. It's called Doherty Commons, and the other is in North Deering, where Washington Ave and Lambert and Auburn all come together. Everything has been going great. We applied for money through the ARPA process, and it's very important to us because construction costs have been very volatile. And we need to get the project built in Portland and built soon and well, because we know the need for workforce housing all throughout southern Maine, actually, and we've been reached out to by several communities that want us to do similar projects there. Our projects are multi-generational, transit-oriented, green, walkable, all the things that you would want in housing. And we're using limited equity cooperatives as a form of ownership, which means that they'll be permanently affordable. So any money that goes into this means it's going to be, for a new family that moves in 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, going to be affordable for them too. So we're really happy about our work. And it seems like with this round, there was some question because we didn't get our planning board approvals to be shovel-ready until about 3 weeks ago. But we have, one project got approved 3 weeks ago, and the next one is in line to be approved by the end of the summer. So I hope you'll take that into consideration, and I'm happy to share more about those projects in the future. We're really happy about them, excited about the potential for this type of housing to provide much-needed workforce housing in Portland and beyond. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, step up, please.
Good evening. My name's Anita St. Ange, and I'm the Director of Portland Adult Education. As you can tell by the number of emails and people you've heard from, this is an important project for our hub. Portland Adult Ed serves as the fiscal agent for the Cumberland County Adult Education Career Services Hub, the 10 adult ed programs. And we feel it's particularly important, this particular type of funding is very important and very relevant because this is a county-wide project. We touch all corners of Cumberland County with the exception of Brunswick, because Brunswick sits in another hub. They are served by Mary Meeting Adult Ed in Topsom. So they're not part of our hub. But otherwise, we reach down to Scarborough, over to Bonnie Eagle and Lake Region, and up to Freeport, along with the Scarborough, South Portland. I won't repeat what was already said and read in the other emails, but I will just say to you that this is our core work. We teach students who need to have the foundational skills to get to the community college. It's particularly relevant right now because there's free college available, but you can't get there until you get your high school diploma. So if you've dropped out, or if you don't speak English well enough to be able to get your high school diploma here, you won't be able to take advantage of that. A lot, as you may know, a lot of the younger students, high school students, have suffered during the pandemic, and they have dropped out or they have just been unable to complete. That's our work. It's what we do well, and it's what we will continue to do. I know the couple of things that you are interested in looking at is, are we shovel ready? The answer is yes, we are. We would love to have more contracted staff, which is why we put in this proposal, but we are ready to serve this population. It's just a question of how many we can serve. And speaking of that, I will say that with the recommendation of $500,000, we would not serve 2,400 students. We would serve a quarter of that. That was for the $2 million proposal. And then the other question is, will this project be sustained? And the answer to that is yes. This is our work. We expect that maybe things will go down once the surge from the pandemic happens, once it lowers. But we continue to do this work. We will seek either additional local funding, additional state funding, additional grant funding. But I think that it is very important at this time to look at Cumberland County as an option in this ARPA funds. So we would ask you to consider both the $500,000 recommendation, which we appreciate, and also consider funding the full proposal. And that's my time. Thank you. But I will be here to answer questions if you have any.
Okay, time will come on off. Jim, aren't we, this is on to be discussed, correct?
It is. It's an item coming up under the ARPA.
Okay, so, okay.
Hi there. I'm Michelle Amato, and I'm here tonight actually with the Greater Portland Community Land Trust, and I feel very much at home because I am, one, a teacher, and I can agree that we definitely need more help in education, but I'm also following up with another great project here for workforce housing. And I'm here tonight to advocate for the, I'm not exactly sure, I'm sorry about the lingo as far as this Tier 1, 2, and 3 competitive grant information goes, but I do know that we've been selected, and I'm here tonight to talk about that and to let you know that this grant of $500,000 gets us much closer to being shovel-ready, that this is also a sustainable project, that that very much like the people that spoke before us, that our housing will also have deed restrictions and will remain in the competitive workforce housing market, that all of these houses once bought by workforce housing folks here in Portland, Maine, will be sold back into that market. I just want to also say, as a teacher here in Portland, that just last week, 2 teachers at Rose School I know were evicted. They're young teachers, both first year here in Portland. One is first year in education in particular, from housing in Munjoy Hill, where both of those houses will be turned into, both of those buildings will be turned into Airbnbs. I'm certainly not against the free market or capitalism. I'm an American, but I also do know that it's important that our teachers, that our police officers, that our firefighters, that our nurses all have some place where they can actually live in the community where they work. And frankly, because of the insurge of excellent and wonderful people from different parts of the country and the world who are coming here to the city of Portland, that's becoming harder and harder for regular folks to be able to afford to live here. And so this money is very important, and we will put it to good use. The Greater Portland Community Land Trust has been working hard in Portland for 9 years, and in the last 2 years have been really exciting changes, and that we've finally been getting some foothold. I have an appointment this evening. I'll be here until 6:30 myself, but Greg is also here if any questions do need to be answered. And I just want to say I very much appreciate all of your time and the effort that you've already put into helping us with this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing where nobody else who wants to speak, we will move on with the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we pass the consent agenda items 22051 through 52, 53, 54, and 55.
Second.
Seeing no discussion, no pulling out, as I call for a vote, is on the consent agenda.
You call. What?
Call for a vote?
Yeah, call for it.
Okay, yeah,
Oh,
I call
I'm
for,
sorry.
I call for a vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Well, you know, sometimes. Okay, we're moving on to the next one, is the Arbor business, and I'm going to turn this over to you, Jim.
Great. I'd like to invite Public Health Manager Liz Blackwell-Moore to come up and present the next item, 22-056, which is concerning the Tri-Town Behavioral Health Liaison position, and the request from the commissioners to award the bid to Spurwink Services. So, Liz, it's all yours.
Hi, so you have before you our position paper for the bid. We put out an RFP. We got 3 proposals for that RFP. What didn't get included, I'm sorry to say, in your packet was our bid tabulation form. So we had the police chiefs from the 3 towns and myself were on the committee reading the proposals. So I just want to pass, if you don't mind, I printed them for you because they didn't make it into the packet. Is that okay?
That's fine,
Okay.
yep.
Do you need one?
Well, I'm willing to read it.
Yeah, you're allowed to read it. Sorry. There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. Sorry that they didn't make it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. I thought these were the police remarks. I've seen those.
We reviewed the 3 proposals and we chose Spurwinks based on our assessment of their proposal And so what you have before you is I'm happy to answer any questions about their proposal. We also included the proposal that they've provided for us. And I think all three of the police chiefs and myself were quite excited about the proposal that's being put together, and the work that they are planning to do in the towns. So if you have questions, I'm happy to, provide any more details that you want. I think most of it is included in your packet.
Does anybody have any questions or anything on this? Steve, you must.
No.
No?
No.
Jim?
No.
Jim?
I'll say I'm familiar with all three of these organizations, and they're all
Yep.
very
Yep.
capable, reputable, and the first choice is not a bad choice.
Need a motion?
Yes, I need a motion.
Move passage.
Second?
Okay. If there's no more further discussion of anything, I call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Jim?
Thank you.
Second item?
The second item is the item that you've heard much of the public comment about thus far, and that is approval of the action plan for round one, the tiers 3 and 4 competitive grants process. So I'd like to ask compliance and audit manager Sandy Warren to come up and present what's in your packet this evening.
Absolutely. Jim, would you mind pulling up the packet so the commissioners can see the spreadsheet that we're
Sure.
referencing this evening?
Okay.
Thank you. So as you're all well aware, this is the final compilation of the open round competitive grants that we received back in the fall. So just to recap, we received about 101 applications back then. We had our first round of funding and review back in April, and then the remaining were reviewed just this past month. So I'm just going to wait for Jim.
And I'm trying to find
Okay.
it.
Okay. So while he's doing that, I'm just going to briefly discuss with you kind of how we came about coming to these particular grant applications and why we've looked at them internally and would like to fund them or recommending them to you. So the goal of our internal review was to always adhere to the guidance presented to us, meaning myself, internal staff, as well as the ARPA Advisory Committee, by you, the county commissioners, and the county manager. So what we did is we looked at if projects were shovel-ready, sustainable, or one-time expenditures, and what community benefit they had, and how that aligned with our ARPA program goals. So I haven't presented this yet, but there is an overview that I'd like to present to the commissioners about the final rule for Treasury. So some things have changed between now and last year when we first got our ARPA funds. And some emphasis has been placed now on providing funding specifically to low-income communities and people of color that have been disproportionately impacted by COVID. Because we have a lot of data now that says this particular group of people truly have been more disproportionately impacted by COVID-19 than others. And in particular, statistically, people that are Black or of other descendants other than white Caucasian are more likely, sometimes in cases of 3 times more likely to contract the disease and also be impacted by it, whether it be because of work-related or childcare issues. All of that combined has created a bigger problem for certain groups. And so we took a look at that and said, how does this relate to our community benefits, and how does it relate to the new program guidelines that ARPA has? We also looked at shovel readiness, which we've talked about in the past. So folks needed to have permitting in place. We needed to make sure that they were zoning approved before we would put them in front of you, as well as the timeline for construction. When were things going to start? Did they have all the pieces of the puzzle that they needed to get off and running right away? We also assessed whether or not a project was either sustainable or truly a one-time funding expenditure. So part of sustainability, we asked ourselves, how much of our funding is a part of that grant request, and what other sources did they seek for funding? So our request might be, for example, $2 million, but what's the overall budget, and how does our request play into that? And what other sources of funds were involved in it? So were there other federal, state, local funding? How did that play out, right? And then also long-term. Once our funds are gone, is there a plan in place, or is there funding available for them to get to make it sustainable? Because when looking at all of these applications, the first thing on my mind was, is it going to create a funding cliff? Because we don't want to do that. The regulations for ARPA don't want to do it, and nor do the county commissioners, which makes sense. We understand that that is very impactful for our community, and we don't want to do that. And then we looked at, is it truly one-time expenditures? Because oftentimes people can assume that it's a one-time expenditure, but I think we all know not everything is going to go away in 5 years. So some of these impacts are going to have long-lasting effects beyond the 3 and 5 years that we have this ARPA funding for. So that was assessed as well. We also went and looked at what community benefit does this application have, and how does that proportionally relate to the request that they provided to us. So how many people are they going to serve with the money that we'll provide to them, essentially? And then up here now are the remaining applications that we are recommending for you to review and approve, provide guidance on. The first being the City of Westbrook, which was a request that we received in round 1. And we went back to the city themselves and asked them to amend their request because there were some concerns and issues that we addressed in round 1, which they did. So now they reduced their ask to $500,000, and it'll be specifically for site and groundwork improvements. So they're going to relocate the sewer to make ready that site for affordable housing development, as well as that hydroponic growing building and the parking garage. There's a multi-phase, but that's what it would be towards. The next is the Greater Portland Land Trust, which is $500,000, which someone else spoke to today, sorry, regarding 21 Randall Street, which is affordable housing, workforce housing, and they're looking for funding to create 16 homes with the $500,000 request from us. Obviously, it's more than that, but that would be the benefit. They also have other funds from the state of Maine, from the community grants, and subdivision affordable housing grants as well attached to it. So they've looked for other sources. Milestones is requesting $222,000 and change for expansion. Sorry, it's really small. I'm trying to read it, and I don't have my glasses on. For expansion costs. So they were told by the state recently that they can expand from a 16-bed facility to 24. So the space they're currently in cannot hold that capacity. So in order for them to actually expand, they have to buy a new space. But the catch is, they don't have the money initially to buy the space and lease it for 1 year, but will afterwards, because once they get the revenue in from those additional 8 people, that's the additional Medicare benefits that will come into play and pay for the lease later on. So that is sustainable within itself. The Boys and Girls Club was asking $140,000 for learning recovery. So this is a combination of a few requests built into one. One is for transportation, so to buy vans to get the kiddos from school or the site that they're at to the actual Boys and Girls Club, because they have multiple sites within South Portland, and I think Riverton, a couple of offshoots. The other part of that is to buy equipment for them, so computers and new technology to help the kids that are coming into the center for learning purposes, so there's someone there to help them. And then the remaining is for just to get people to buy back into coming back to the Boys and Girls Club. So to kind of advertise it a little bit more, get parents out there and acknowledging that, hey, you can bring them here. So advertising costs to get people to come back in the door, because they did have a dip in kids not going because they had to close their doors for some time. So they need to regain some of those students again, or members, I should say. The next is the Cumberland County Adult Education Program, which requested $2 million, but was recommended only at $500,000. And this is, of course, as you guys have all heard, to support the additional workforce education and training in English learners, and specifically for youth ages 17 to 28 under that category, which doesn't have as much funding as other K through 12 funding programs. And then at the state level, I'm sure you guys have all heard about the ARPA funds for the college. So that's not a part of this funding or funding stream. They do have a plan that they created for sustainability, which builds in funding over time. So we're reducing the initial ARPA request over the course of several years and backfilling it with their own funding to support it. And then lastly, the town of Pownell was looking for $153,000 and change for their communication center. So they need to install new technology to do remote meetings in Pownell, and to update their elevator, because their remote meeting, or their meeting center is on the second floor. So that is part of that request. They were requesting initially the full funds from county ARPA, and the reason for that is they had some internal requests that they wanted to fund with their current ARPA funding. So they do have $163,000 in ARPA of their own, but they were looking to spend it on heating assistance for their residents this fall, as well as upgrades to their municipal public works station, and sign-on bonuses for their fire, because they've lost a lot, and construction work for their fire site, the engine house. Sorry, I can't think of the name, but you know what I'm talking about.
Fire station.
Yes, thank you. So that's that in its totality. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Questions for you or for the particular people? So,
Yeah, questions for me about the recommended list, or if you have concerns about the list, any amendments, any of that stuff.
So regarding the Cumberland County Adult Ed and Career Development Hub, where is the hub? What towns is it going to serve? I was a little confused. One of the comments online by Mr. Nash, I guess, referenced 2 communities, but we have 26.
Yes.
So, or 28. So I want a few more details also. Where else did they seek funding? So if it's truly serving the county, what other sources, ARPA sources, did they pursue, if any at all?
Yep. So I'll answer the sources one first, because I actually printed that out to have it handy. The other revenue sources is local funding, including state subsidies, federal through Maine DOE, private investment, which contributes to $4 million in total of other additional funding that they have towards it. So looking at those other state and local funding sources. And then in terms of where they reach, so they are located in like the Lakes region, for example, which is right out of Lake Region High School. Brunswick is its own entity, but then you have Gorham, Wyndham, Westbrook, Wyndham, Raymond.
I have, Mr. Nash did include the list in his email. I only
okay.
skipped over it
All
to keep it in 3 minutes, but I can read it for you now. Bonnie Eagle, Freeport, Gorham, Great New Gloucester, Lakes Region, Freiburg area, Portland, Scarborough, South Portland, Westbrook, and Wyndham.
It's serving those communities, although the actual classes and the adult teachers are going to be out of the Lakes region. Is that correct?
They'll be out of those other hubs, correct? Yeah. So those are all their own independent hubs or stations where teachers would run classes out of.
I'm
So
still
they would
confused.
run them out of Westbrook.
If they hire if we grant the additional funds, they hire 9 additional teachers, are each of the teachers going to be selected in one of those communities?
Yes, right, they would be or for the whole group.
And what's the census of the current
Maybe
program?
if
Yeah.
Anita,
Yeah,
you could
Anita,
jump
yeah.
up the mic.
Yeah, why don't you-
Go
yeah.
right ahead.
I'm sorry, Tom Nash has
Oh,
arrived
okay.
as
Yeah.
well. So the 10 programs are those 10 that you read. Each of those serve all the communities in their area. So we serve almost every community in Cumberland County, with the exception of the Brunswick area. The plan was to distribute these teachers among the programs. So some of the programs, like ours, serve over 2,000 students. So, we would need more than, another program that serves, 50 students. So that 50 student might share a full-time person, 50% here, or only hire a 50% person in Wyndham, or in Bonnie Eagle, and another 50% in Lake Region. So we would look at the total population to be served, and then distribute those teachers accordingly.
Anita, have you reached out to those other communities, including the city of Portland, to see if they would contribute part of their budget from the ARPA funding?
Yeah. We have, in fact, we have a full-time ESOL teacher included in this year's Portland budget, our school department. And the 4 million, I'm not quite sure if we were clear on that. That is for Portland alone. All the other, our budget is over $3 million just for Portland, and each of the programs have budget's obviously not as big as
And
Portland.
what is the city of Portland contributing from their ARPA funds?
We did not seek ARPA funds. We do have $200,000 in TIF funding from the city of Portland for our programs.
Very good, thank you.
And to speak to that ARPA funding, also there's a mechanism called eShap. I think I'm probably not saying that right. It's funding, it's ARPA funding specific for education that Portland has.
Oh, ESSER.
ESSER, thank you. That is what you're referencing as well, right?
Yeah, well, and ESSER funds, that's actually a whole different, in each of the programs, that comes to the K-12 system. And because we are actually part of the K-12 system, we don't have a separate allocation, but we do have, we got our student tech coordinator from ESSER funds. So we have access state ARPA funds, which are called the MJRP, or, there are all kinds of other categories.
Thank you.
Yep. Why don't you step up?
I'm sorry, I was actually administering a HiSET exam before I got here, so I couldn't get here at the 5:30 time. We serve, as Anita mentioned, that all those programs, all those communities have their own separate adult education programs, and they can serve a number of students depending on their local budget. We have about a $600,000 budget in Wyndham. We serve 125 academic students, ESOL, high school completion, and we could definitely serve a lot more if we had some additional funds. We also get local appropriation, but times have been tight, and we've, for the most part, been flat funded locally for several years. This year was the first time we got an increase in 6 years, so we hope to see that upward trend for the sustainability piece. And we also do remote learning. I know that was mentioned as well, but I serve some students in my program that live in Portland because they can access those services online. And we're able to pivot to online learning like the rest of the school system when COVID hit. And it's actually, some of our students prefer that because they don't have all the barriers, the childcare, the transportation, whatever, to participate in our class, and they can access our services online and come in on occasion to meet with us, meet with the advisors as needed. So I just want to make sure I share that with you. It's not just, again, I serve Portland students, I serve students from Greater Gloucester in Wyndham. But I also have people that come to us in person. We saw a lot of students that just came from El Salvador and Guatemala that came to us specifically to ask for ESOL services, and they came from the Portland area. So we work with each other. We don't follow town lines. So thank you.
Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, frankly, I'm surprised that you're coming to us for this, because the municipalities and the school districts and the state have the responsibility for education. We don't. And did you approach the state ARPA funds to get funds from them? Did you approach the municipalities to get some of their ARPA funds? Again, they have that responsibility. And did you? I guess that's...
Yeah, do you want to answer that question? Okay, because I have some stuff in front of me.
And again, we did approach other areas, and each of us have received some additional funding, the ARPA funding in particular. But one of the reasons we're coming to you in particular is because of the workforce focus. We're a little different. I mean, we are education, but it is education with the purpose of enhancing our workforce. And so that's where we thought it fit squarely within the Cumberland County ARPA priorities that you have set.
I don't...
And again, we have gone to all of these other places as well. I mean, again...
And what did you receive?
Well, we have received money from, and again, I can speak to Portland. I have received additional funding from our school board, from our local taxes. We've received $200,000 in tax increment finance funding. We did not approach the city for ARPA funds. Again, we have additional grant funding. There is a several million additional dollars in addition to this request.
What about the other communities?
Tom could speak to Wyndham Raymond. I can't speak to each of the other communities in detail.
We received maybe $20,000 $1,000 through ESSER funds over the 3 or 4 different pots of money. That's all, that we weren't allowed to access any other amounts.
So none of the other communities offered any ARPA money? Were formal applications made?
Again, the funds went to the school districts, and the school districts then were allowed to distribute it amongst the various needs within the district. In Wyndham, the first amount of funds I got was $13,000. I was able to purchase some additional computers to loan out to students, to add a couple classes, and that was it. So, and I think, we work with the community college system, but they get their own funds, and we want to prepare our students to go there, to be successful at the next level at community college. Or to go, whether it be a certificate program or a 2-year degree or whatever. But we feel we're the entryway on that career pathway for workforce training.
Have you tried the Coastal County Workforce Board?
We certainly work with them. They don't have any funding specifically. They will fund some of our students who are taking courses. But a lot of our students, because we serve, again, speaking of Portland, a lot of asylum seekers are not eligible for Workforce Solutions funding.
I guess that was my question. Did you approach them for additional funds?
There is no option for us to get funding from them, as far as I know.
So the answer is no.
Well, the answer is we don't believe, no, we did not go to them for additional funding.
Because they don't for us. Like you said, it follows the student to then access training programs. So if we offer that training program, then they would subsidize that student to come to us, but we don't see those funds coming to us directly. Does that mean?
Like a scholarship, in the form of a scholarship.
Exactly, similar to that, yeah.
With the commissioners,
Can I ask what we're doing with this?
Well-
The agenda says this is a first reading. Are we dealing on this next month, or are we
Well,
trying
I
to do
think-
something tonight, or what are we doing?
That's a good
Think-
question, Jim.
I think, well, that's where I was going to go with this. I think that we should hold off on this because this doesn't go with the original plan that the commissioners had set up regarding funding. I think the original plan is that we weren't going to fund staffing of item, So I really think that we need to have some more discussion on this. And I think that we need some more, information, with where they have gone, with money, like with the applications and if any have come back. So I would say that we need to hold off on this decision and, get, with some more information, decide with the commissioners going to change with the direction and, with where we're going to go. Because originally that we weren't going to fund
Staff, yeah.
yeah, staffing. So, with Jim, where,
So I would ask if there's a concern on one of the applications out of, was there 6 on the spreadsheet?
Oh, okay.
That maybe you can remove that one.
okay, well, yeah.
And work through that application on a separate track, but
Yeah.
preserve the other 5 to get them
Yeah.
moving forward, because there are projects out there waiting for these
Right.
funds. And so maybe pass first reading for 5 out of the 6.
6, okay,
So that we
yeah.
can move on until July.
So
no, with Jim, yeah.
is this something that could be discussed at our next workshop? We got one coming up in a couple of weeks.
If that's the
Well,
desire of the
yeah, but-
commissioners.
So I do have, I would invite Ms. St. Ange and anyone else who has an opinion to
To the workshop.
give us some information. My concern, I frankly helped write 10 City of Portland School Department budgets. And I'm always concerned about displacement of funding if we end up funding something that otherwise would be funded, that it's simply funds that would be available for a certain purpose, then just get diverted someplace else. And there's, so I'd like to have a better understanding of where the budget stands with the city of Portland, especially. I mean, the adult ed is something that's funded every year in Portland.
Move the table.
I think I don't think there's anything wrong with us passing this on a first reading tonight. If it requires 2 readings, then it gives us a chance to review it a little more closely, but I'll defer to what everybody else thinks they ought to do. I certainly agree that the rest of the program should be passed right along. I don't see anything wrong with them. And I guess I would point out to the people involved in the education issue, it is absolutely the case after spending 2 years working on this that our priorities had been pretty explicit about the things that we wanted to fund and the things that we didn't want to fund for various reasons that we identified through a very public process. And so this would be pretty clearly a deviation from that, and it's something that kind of weighs against it pretty strongly. The flip side is we're very much interested in helping people that had their circumstances deranged substantially by the COVID pandemic, and certainly that has got to include asylees who come to us without very much by way of tangible resources usually. So that's I'm willing to make a motion to pass the first reading on the other projects and maybe table this to the workshop.
Yes.
I'll second.
If there's no other further discussion, I call for, and let me just reiterate that we will pass with the other 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Sandy? Is there 5 there?
Yep.
On first reading.
On the first reading, and we will table with the one for the county is adult, the education one, and with the workshop that we have, and we can gather, some more information. So, that being said, I call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, now I'll get back to, okay, so we're under, okay, so the next item, where are we? Oh, the next item is under new business. It's item number 22-058. Approval of the request from the town of New Gloucester for the sheriff's office to provide a 6-hour with detail at the community fair on August 20, 2022 at no cost. With Jim.
What you read was pretty much the summary of the request. The request came in to the sheriff's office requesting that the 6-hour detail for one of our sheriff's deputies, that fee, that is, I believe, $73 an hour outside detail fee, be waived for the town of New Gloucester for their community fair that is to take place in August. That request came through the sheriff's office. The sheriff has denied that request because we do receive these requests, and we have a significant amount of outside detail, not only in the summertime, but all year long. So, opening Pandora's box here, the request was denied at the sheriff's level. It was then turned around and petitioned the county commissioners for the same request, hoping that the county commissioners would review and waive the fee associated with that deputy. The sheriff is here to answer any questions that the commissioners may have, and I would make myself available for any questions too, or further direction. Thank you.
Sheriff, would you like to speak on this? I think I'm going to refrain because I'm directly involved, is on the other end of it.
So this request was denied last summer, right after the new town manager, Christine, came on board. I guess it doesn't harm to ask, but I said, no, I can't, I don't have it in my budget to be able to do that. My fear is you do it for New Gloucester, then we're gonna be doing it for Casco. There are events in Raymond. There are events in our contract towns that we actually charge for outside as well. So it does open Pandora's box on doing this. Generally, what we do is, if New Gloucester had a parade, we know that's gonna be an hour or so. If we've got the staff to cover the parade, I'll do that, but this is 6 hours. And my fear is that if we do it, everybody else, we should do it for everyone else. And I don't have that in my budget.
That I was actually at the event last year with the capacity of the VIPWA program for the sheriff's office. And where the deputy was there, and he walked around and, just kept an eye on things and just kept things were safe. So I cannot with support, because like what Kevin was said, if you're going to give it, over to New Gloucester, there's a lot of other ones out there, and there's a lot of stuff that you do, like the high school basketball games and all of that and stuff. So I cannot, support this at all, so. Do you have something to say, Alex?
Yeah, I just want to chime in. Finance gets about one request a year for the fees to be waived. We always deny them.
Yeah.
Just, that happens pretty regularly, where they try to go straight to us on it, from other agencies.
There's no reason why we should change our policy
No,
that's been in place.
Well, can you,
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
well, you can ask the sheriff a
Oh,
question.
sure, yes.
Kevin, after last year, were they informed that there was a fee, et cetera, so they have full knowledge of this?
Yeah, I mean, they said, well, do you think the commissioners would, I said, hey, you gotta ask commissioners, I mean, if they wanna give it to you, then, I've always operated on the premise for patrol contracts. I mean, if for some reason you wanna do patrol contracts free, then you guys make that decision. I'll just tell them what they're gonna get free, or what they pay, so in this particular case, she asked, and I said, well, it's worth a try, I guess, so.
But didn't they pay for last year, right? Yeah, because there was a fair last year.
It could be. I
Yeah.
mean, what I've offered up is this. We have a deputy work in that area covering 2 more towns, Powell and New Gloucester, covering North Yarmouth. So the individual could get out and walk around as long as there's no calls. But as soon as they get a call, they're gonna be out of it. So I think, unfortunately, sometimes I have to be careful too with the VIPs, because they think they're getting a pseudo police officer for nothing. And I have to explain to them that they have a function and it's not a law enforcement function. So, again, I don't blame them for asking, but this is,
As I recall in the write-up, they had a condition where they had a crowd and no coverage. And so you kindly, at that time, immediately came in.
there have been a couple of times up there where we've had to assign people. The Memorial Day Parade, they had an issue over a flag. We sent some people up, but they were people on duty.
Right.
And as long as they were available, they took care of it, but they were working anyway. So we try to do that, but, to guarantee somebody to be there, I can't do that without putting them out on an extra detail, and I don't have the budget to pay that, so.
So basically, if something happens, you'll cover it like you cover everything else in the county that happens. If they call from the fair and say, we've got this incident, then
We'll be there.
send the nearest person gets sent, but you can't guarantee that they're gonna be just hanging around just in case, because.
That's correct.
Right.
And if the moon and the planets line up, and the person goes up there and they're able to stay 6 hours without getting drawn away, then that's a good deal, but we can never guarantee that.
I'm gonna say, it's busy enough, I can't imagine anybody hanging out for 6 hours in one place without something else coming out.
So, do we have a vote on this? I need a motion, or?
I move to table it indefinitely.
Second.
Is all those in favor to table this definitely?
Aye.
Aye, so, okay. So no free contracts in the county, so. Okay, moving on, we have item 22-059, the approval of the 2022 to 2023 cross-insurance arena operations capital and trustees budgets. Well, Jim, I'm turning this over to you.
All right, and I will quickly turn it over to General Manager Mike LeConte. This is Mike's first budget that he's put together as General Manager with Cross Insurance Arena, and I have to give him a big compliment. It was very well done and went through the county, the CIA trustees very smoothly, and they unanimously brought forth a recommendation for you to pass this budget. But we won't make that easy for Mike, and so we'll ask him to go through his budget, just hitting the high points along the way, and give some methodology on how we put this budget together for the 2022-2023 budget year. So Mike, it's all yours.
Thanks, Jim. There's two documents that I'm just going to flip-flop between, and I'm not going to spend forever on this, I promise. I'm just going to give a high level.
1 second, Mike. You should all have a paper copy in front of you, as well as I finally figured out the screen up there.
There we go, okay.
So,
There's another one that says event
yeah,
spread.
there's 2 pages, so, thank you, Mike.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
sure. So I was lucky enough to work on 6 budgets before this, but it was never ultimately my full responsibility. But I was able to work with my previous 3 general managers to see the methodology that goes into building out a budget for the arena. And through those years, I was thinking that, to me, it seemed like it was a little bit almost like cookie cutter. And I've always wanted to have the chance to bring in some, like, a new look or a fresh look on some events that maybe we would have passed over in the previous years. So basically, when you're looking at the event spread, I went at it with an average of 100 events. So some years we've had 94, other years we've had 120. I'm confident, I mean, it's a little conservative, but confident we can get to the 100. And what that 100 does, if you go over to the budget worksheet, the very first column, you'll see the event operating income, the 1.4 million, and right below that is other income, our ancillaries, another 650. The line right below that is your indirect, so that you take that away from the income, and we're going to end up with about 512,000 in a deficit for the next fiscal year. Now, $500,000 sounds like a lot, for sure. And it is. But if you look 4 columns over, the previous year's budget that was passed was a negative $980,000. And obviously, a lot had to do with the pandemic and the staffing and the tours that all gave up on the road. And we were faced with some challenges to keep that place running with creative events and to keep the lights on and make it generate some revenue at some extent. So we're operating in a year right now that, again, was approved for a negative $980,000. We're projecting to end the year at negative $200,000. So basically, that's taking off roughly $700,000 against the deficit that was approved for the 980. Now, it was difficult to achieve that with staffing levels being really, really tight and really short. And then the shows pretty much doubled on us. Everybody came back out on the road. Everybody wanted to, get out there and start making their own money, whether it's a comedy act, a concert, whatnot. So we got buried in shows. So in essence, it gave me an idea of, we do have to get our event mix up a little bit. I mean, I appreciate every, the ones that keep coming back, Globetrotters and the different tournaments and whatnot. But we've been looking at diversifying the mix a little bit. Even last summer, we were able to do 4 lacrosse games. They just signed on to do 4 more this summer, which is pretty cool. We're going to have a huge Maine Comic-Con next spring, which they're anticipating up to 20,000 people will come through the arena over 3 days. We have a couple of other conventions we're looking at, and then the traditional mix. Like, I'm still trying to sign the country shows, the Christian rock shows. We hope that the Mariners will go into the playoffs again. All of that will contribute to getting us to more than 100 shows, 100 events. So where I ended up with, again, the $512,000 deficit, I'm hopeful that that is kind of a starting point for me to shoot for, but I really want to, do away with that deficit the best that I can, just like we did with the 980 of this year. And the way we'll do that, if you just glance over at the event spread, you'll just see the different categories that we have. And I'm trying to increase the number of categories this year, again, diversifying our portfolio of who comes into the arena and trying to beef up the ones that are coming in. Like Paw Patrol was going to come in for 2 days. I'm trying to get them for 3 days. Bluey's Big Play wanted to come in for 1 day. I'm trying to get them for 2 days. So each time I do that, that's an additional event day that is unbudgeted that will contribute to reducing the deficit of the 512,000. So you can see those are some pretty big numbers. They're really high level, but the methodology behind it is taking all of the input from my staff, the different directors, input from previous GMs, like I said, and then trying to apply a more like creative, almost entrepreneurial spirit into bringing more to the arena so that the lights are on more days than not. That's how I derived at this bottom line and where we're at now. So any questions, I am all yours.
Commissioner Gordon?
Yeah, Mike, under your events here, there's some of them you have zero. Is that you looking to get them, or?
Some of those, yes. Right now, it's not booked yet, and even if I'm confident we're going to, I don't want to put it in there and then it falls through, and all of a sudden I'm starting to go backwards on my negative 512,000. So the answer is yes to some of those, but other ones we're probably not going to get, like NHL or NBA exhibition. I haven't seen that since 2002. So, but some of these categories, yes. I'm going to pursue them.
Could you go, like, what's MMA?
Mixed martial arts.
Okay, and PBR?
Professional bull riding.
Oh, gee, I thought it was a drink. And the only comment I have, I really raise my eyebrows when I see this circ.
Yeah, yep. They promise us every other year. I think it's probably going to be 2024 when we get them back.
Well, the one that I saw was,
Yeah. Well, not Cirque du Soleil, you mean Cirque Christmas?
yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was different production.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Cirque du Soleil is the one that we want back.
Are there any other questions on the budget? Jim, do you have any comments or anything?
No, I think Mike put together a good budget to shoot from. It's not something that's dealing with any fuzzy math. It's pretty straightforward and achievable. And it kind of puts the fire on the Mike now to book all these events. So good luck, Mike.
Yeah. I take a lot of pride in, I treat that facility, I know it's counties, it's yours, but I treat it as though it's my own. And it's been really awesome the first 6-7 months working over there, and the support that I've gotten from Jim and other folks over here. So I just look forward to trying to grow this event mix into hopefully 110, 120 events. That's my goal.
Steve? did you
Yeah,
have-
I'm going to put our chairman on the spot, seeing as she's our representative to the CIA. Would you give us your words of wisdom of supporting the budget and what your sense is?
That I do, support this budget. I think if she's done, a very good job on it. The only question that I ever have is, why is July, is that like a month when nobody wants to do anything, or everything is outside, or, yeah?
It's a combination of those, and that is a sore spot for me, because my 7 years there, we've never had anything in July. So I've already gotten a few for August, which is really cool.
Yeah,
And if
yeah,
I could
see
try
that.
to fit something in for July, I will, but it's usually just those months. It's
Months,
very
yeah.
tough to get somebody to come inside.
I don't see the monster trucks on here.
No,
No.
we're tabling those guys.
Are we gonna forego the monster?
I stand corrected. We're gonna have 3 lacrosse games in July.
Oh, well, that's
Yeah,
good.
that's right.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. No, I did not attend another meeting, with the other day. I had another, commitment, for the county. And I've been talking with Jim about it, and he's very happy, and you've done a good job, Mike, and it's got my approval.
Thank you.
Yep.
As part of the operation budget, we also work through a capital budget for the arena. I've put the capital budget up on the screen. That was not a handout this evening, as we knew we would be able to beam it up on the screen for you. But as you can see, Mike brought forth 6 requests. He and I worked through those 6 requests and ultimately brought forward 3 requests for the trustees to consider, and the trustees then forward that recommendation on to you. And Mike, would you like to go down through those 3 requests?
Yeah, certainly. The first one, the arena marquee, is something that we've been lacking since it was the old Civic Center. You guys remember the big sign out front, hockey tonight, you know, AC/DC tonight, and that would drive a lot of ticket sales. Well, we haven't had anything like that. And all the other smaller venues have cool signage and bright lights and upcoming events, and we don't have that. And, you know, this is something I want to promote and for everybody to see that's going to be traveling through town. So we're looking at an arena marquee, an LED display that's going to be on the corner of Center and Spring, that southeast lobby, the new corner of the building. But what's going to be involved with that is we're going to tie in with the county for any emergency messaging that has to go out there, whether it's an Amber Alert or a weather emergency or whatnot. So we're looking at ARPA funds to subsidize the marquee, where it can be a shared tool for the county and the arena to use together.
And the city of Portland.
And the city of Portland, right. So that's what we're looking at for that first one. For concessions, POS is point of sale. What we have in place right now just isn't fast. It just isn't stable, and it's not scalable. So we're looking at potentially putting in a better system so that those long food lines are shorter, so that it's more of a tap and go as opposed to waiting for, you know, someone to swipe a card and the circle just goes around and around. So we're looking to upgrade that because that will have a huge impact on the shows when we only have maybe one intermission or that 1 hour before the show starts for people to get their snack or their beer or whatnot to get those lines moving along. There's a lot of money being left on the table there. Wi-Fi upgrade, this is more of a feature for the shows that are coming in. We have Wi-Fi in the bowl, but we do not have Wi-Fi in the locker rooms and dressing room areas. So it's tough when shows come in. You have production folks, you have promoters, you have the artists, and the artist people all come in, and there's no Wi-Fi in the dressing room area. So we'd like to upgrade to get them up to date with that.
Mike, do we have fiber to the?
We do. Yep. It's consolidated fiber, so we can build right off that. Yeah, question. Number 4, the arena sound system. We have very, very old speakers in the ceiling. There's not a lot of quality to the sound. There's no depth, there's no treble, there's no bass. It's very tinny, so a lot of the music that's played backwards, music that's playing back, as well as folks that are using the PA system to speak. We would like to get some speakers in there that are newer than 20 years old, just with the effect of the fan experience when they come in. Network the arena TVs. We have 110 TVs throughout the whole arena. And when we put menus or upcoming events or anything like that on a TV, it's an individual thumb drive that goes into the TV. So we have to update anywhere between 80 and 100 TVs every show by hand. So I'm looking at a network solution to do that. That is just to expedite our efficiency with setting up for shows. Bless you. And then stanchions, we have old stanchions, those are the belts that pull across. A lot of them have broken bases, frayed belts, clips that don't work, so we're looking at getting some more stanchions as well. So those are the capital items that I've been working closely with Jim on.
So just to give you an understanding, what we're asking for this evening is the arena marquee, the Wi-Fi, and arena sound system. Mike and I have been working, we're going to fund the network arena TVs and stanchions out of another pot of funds. And you probably will see us back to talk about the POS system. It's just not ripe right now for us to bring that forward. And,
Right.
and I think Mike and his team are doing a lot of work to make sure that they find the right system for our needs. And so we really don't want the commissioners to act on $150,000 because we just don't know what that
Right.
cost is right now. So we're just asking for number 1, 3, and 4 as part of the capital budget.
In the sound system, are you going to have that engineered, or is that something you're doing in-house?
We will have that engineered. Yeah, we'll have it done properly with 3D schematics and acoustic plotting and all that, so it'll be done right. Yeah.
So I'll make the motion to pass the budget. And
Oh, we got one more budget.
We got one more.
Yeah.
budget.
One more budget.
We got more to go?
I'm sorry, Commissioner. Yes, and this is the trustees' budget. The trustees have long had a budget, and that budget is largely based on that they were an independent entity at one time. So as you can see, when you look at the first three columns, many more column or line items are built in. And you can see as the years go on, they get narrower, and we aren't funding as many of the line items anymore because of the efficiency that we have as the CIA coming in as a department of the county. However, we do still fund some line items. Professional services, there are some times that we need to seek legal help. We do have contracts with major sporting teams and other events that come through that we may need to ask for some help and guidance. We do have board meetings at the arena where we have to make sure that people have parking in the Spring Street parking garage. And then we also have breakfast because we do meet pretty early in the morning. Then we, as the management contract with Spectra, or was it Evo 360 now?
It's Oakview Group, OVG 360.
Okay.
Yeah.
I gotta get
Evo.
into it. It's still Spectra to me. That we have an incentive fee based on a number of criteria that we go through. And that is a job that I have come August on figuring out whether the arena has met the benchmarks as described in the arena management agreement. With the year that they've had this year, I am estimating that we're going to be on the upper side of that incentive fee, so I've put in $95,000 for that. It could be $5,000 less, it could be $3,000 more. It's just a shot in the dark at this point because we really haven't ended this fiscal year yet. It doesn't end until the end of June. And then we have a consolidation of all of our insurances through Cross Insurance, and that is at $90,000. So the trustees' budget is coming before you for $196,400.
Way down from where it used to be.
Right, yeah, oh, yeah.
I move passes of all three items.
Second.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, I call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it passes.
Thank you for all your work over
Yeah.
at the
Thank you.
arena.
Yeah.
My pleasure. It's been an honor. It really has. Yeah.
I'm happy to see something that's not unduly optimistic, too. I mean, it's realistic and.
Yeah.
With some, you didn't build in some assumptions that you're gonna do better than you might. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to, I would be pleased to see the numbers improve, which I think you kind of set yourself up for that.
Right.
That possibility is out there.
I'm confident, not arrogant.
Oh, it's Alex. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I have a comment that it didn't really apply to the budget itself, but it's sort of a transition between that budget and this one. One of the key things that we had for last year's cross-insurance arena budget was we had that very, very large deficit that they're putting into the budget. And if you were to look in our budget for FY22, it wasn't as big a number. And that was because we were planning to fund any difference between those average losses we'd had the past few years and that much larger money through ARPA funds, which we now, unless something goes spectacularly wrong in June, will not have to do. So that is helpful on that front. It frees up the ARPA dollars and will also possibly free up fund balance, which will be a segue into the next budget.
Okay. I guess you can leave, Mike, unless you'd like to stay for the rest of the
How
meeting.
much longer are you guys going?
Oh.
5 hours.
Not 5.
Another
But
half
you-
hour maybe.
I'll stay.
Yeah, oh, you can stay?
Yeah.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
Okay.
You'd be the first person in 12 years that did that.
But the rest of us, if you had asked us if we'd like to leave, we would have been gone. Okay, the next item is 22-060, approval of the 2022-2023 county jail budget. And I guess you are, Jim, do you want to comment, or we just turn it to the sheriff?
I'm gonna, I'll turn it to the sheriff first, but Alex will be the one running down through the
Okay.
budget
Yep.
and
That's fine.
how it all fell out. So Sheriff, would you like to kick off?
Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I'm gonna probably punt to Major courts at some point, but, you know, it was an interesting year, budget-wise, and trying to stay operating. And I think the majors really looked at the budget and tried to move things around and tried to be as responsible as possible, understanding that we're still operating in still unprecedented times, even though things are kind of getting back to normal, as far as staffing, as far as the court system and getting along with it, etc. So, Major, you want to go over the budget?
Yep. So some of the adjustments, Manager, if you just go down, we did try to add some funds when it came to inflation items like transportation, food costs, contract services. We looked at some of the discrepancies we had this year and tried to at least reallocate some funds to areas that we were deficient on. When it came to training was another issue that we tried to reduce the amount just due to COVID and the challenges that we have. Again, anything that we added money, we subtracted from somewhere else. So it wasn't that we were asking for any additional funds. When it comes to positions, we didn't ask for any additional positions this year above what we're allocated for. When it came to uniforms and stuff that we could cut based on what we've used this year, we kind of treated allocated to different areas. Some maintenance areas that we need to bulk up on with electrical, plumbing. And with food and groceries, we did up that. We've been under budget this year. We're probably going to be right on the nose, hopefully, but within reason. And we did add some additional funds to that also. Institutional supplies, we cut that. We've been under budget the past few years, so again, we made adjustments based on historical the past 2 years. And those are like the highlights. Again, it was pretty conservative this year just due to some of the unknown sources of any additional funds until that's been ironed out with the state and other entities. Boarding is a concern because of the lack of boarders that we have. It's been traditionally a little lower this year. Again, some of that's dictated by the federal government and other initiatives.
So I can speak to the borders. A couple months ago, I reached out to York County to see if over the summer we could do something to try to close the gap for our employees, give them time off, take all of their inmates, leave them as a 72-hour temporarily, hopefully incentivize their people to come up and work out of the Cumberland County Jail so their staff could get time off and our staff could get time off. There didn't seem to be an appetite on that. And there were some phone calls, there were some meetings set up, canceled, et cetera. So I talked to Jim Gailey, and we decided that, you know what, we're going to get out of the business of swapping inmates with York County. In essence, we were holding 20-some odd of their inmates. They were holding 8 of ours. So by the end of June, we will be holding our inmates, they'll be holding their inmates. It really became a benefit to them in a lot of ways because we were holding their females and special housing unit people. And now they're going to have to figure out a way to do that. The U.S. Marshals came out with a list of things that we have to do now for a contract that they want us to sign. We were sitting around looking at, there's about 20 things that they want that like everything else, we've got people that have so many hats. It's like, who's gonna do this? Who's gonna do that? How are we gonna do this? We're trying to figure out where it came from. Well, today, I took time to read President Biden's executive order for federal law enforcement, and a lot of the things that they're asking us to do is listed in that executive order he just put out in May.
Pass the
So, there's the answer. It's coming through the marshals. We're working right now to, really, I've asked for the attorney to give me a letter that I can sign that basically says, the 26 items, I cannot guarantee we can do right now. We will work on it. One of the biggest items is something that, for ACA accreditation next year, is restrictive housing that we've got to battle with. And that's a step down from what we currently do, basically not using our SHU or maximum security, that they can only stay there a certain time, and then you got to back down on that, and you've got to record those different things. So we're going to be working through that, but you'll see that the marshal service is not holding a lot of people in the last year or so. And again, I don't know how they're going to react to the fact that, right now, I can't say we're going to do it. Now, I've reached out to some other agencies, and they're basically either hoping that they don't come in and check, or they didn't read the contract. I don't want to play that game. So I need to put that on the table. And then lastly, the ICE came up with a standard, and although it makes sense, it's not realistic, is that if they have an ICE inmate that is on suicide watch, they need a mental health check by a certified mental health provider every 8 hours.
Wow.
Well, I can't do that. And again, some agencies have kind of found ways around it. I'm not sure it's only going to happen until somebody makes a mistake, and then they'll get bitten by that. So I've sent them a letter basically saying that we cannot do that. We've got good mental health, but we don't have the mental health services that they want and expect. So when you start seeing some of the revenue projections, it's trying times. It's all about staffing, and we'll see how it goes. I think that's all I have for the budget.
Great. Alex, would you like to take us down through as the main?
Wait a minute.
I got a question.
Commissioners? Yeah.
Sorry.
Sheriff, and I realize, I think I asked you this question offline at one time, but the Maine State Police are eliminating their rural patrols. Does that affect us?
No.
Because we do the whole county.
Yes. I would say, way back when I was on the street, 20 years ago, we were doing about 95.
How long?
20 years ago. 95% of the calls for service, if you will. They had too much tied up in call sharing in the other counties. They had the interstate to deal with, et cetera. I think it's closer to like 97, 98% now. The reality is that if they're in the area, they'll take a call. If we need them and they have somebody in the area, they'll take a call, but it's not going to affect us whatsoever. In fact, in the governor's conference coming up in mid-July, we're probably going to end up, not that it's a big deal, taking any call that would have come to them for about 3 days so that they can focus on what's going on here in Poland. So it won't affect us whatsoever.
Well, speaking from with another hat on, we're the only county in the state that it's not going to affect.
Yes, and we've known this. I mean, there were a lot of agencies that have been frustrated with call sharing. We never got into call sharing because of the fact that, again, they needed the resources somewhere else. So yeah, it's good that something in the state of Maine is not going to affect Cumberland County, at least this one thing.
Yep.
So.
You're on, Alex or Jim, or?
I'd just like to have Alex start off. The major talked about the expenditures, but one of the big items that we have that Alex puts together is the wage and salary and benefits on the top. And as the commissioners know, last July, Dawn was able to solve the contract, the CBA for NCEU. And that CBA has a play into the numbers that you're seeing here. under the 22-23 budget. So Alex, would you like to start here and then just run us down through the expenditures and revenues, working it that way?
Sure. Okay, I'll start with that. And sort of the big caveat to this budget is I think the watchword for this year's budget is really very transitional. There are, and you'll see this as we go through this, there are a lot of variables out there for this year's budget that will change pretty drastically as we get into future years. So you're seeing that $616,000 increase over prior years, and that's really purely based off of the contract going off of budgeted employees. We are not changing our budgeted number of budgeted employees, in spite of the fact that we are obviously down quite a few employees. That is because that would create a rather major problem for us in future years if we were to try to rebuild the budget on that. So we are holding that $616,000 increase on there by holding the budgeted employees stable in spite of the shortages. So that's a really key piece to the budget. Going down through there, I'll just say the major and the sheriff, as always, do an excellent job of keeping most of these lines very close to where they're supposed to be, which is why year in and year out at this jail, you don't typically see a lot of movement from year to year. One line item, though, that has been having big increases the past few years, and we've all been discussing this, and it's even on the agenda for later on as a last-minute item, is that contract special services, which is inmate medical. And that is the impact of the wage increases that have been going through, hitting home. Interestingly enough, it's also, and I'm stealing my own thunder for later, but let's just combine them right up. It's also things like their liability insurance is going through the roof due to COVID. It turns out, congregate care settings are causing insurance rates for a lot of these places to go up as well. So that's that $200,000 increase that you're seeing there. That's one of the big ones. A lot of these other line items are pretty small by comparison. The major definitely hit on the food costs. They've been doing a great job of keeping that down. But you can really, especially the last month or two, start to see inflation take its toll on the food prices. Those weekly costs are ticking steadily upward, and we all know why. The last major change there, that line sort of with the somewhat misleading title, the DOC 20% funds, that's Maine pretrial. And that's the group that we had come in a few months ago to talk through the work that they do for the jail. And the thing that's become extremely obvious is every penny we give to them, we get $1 back. I mean, it's really remarkable how worth it is. That $25,000 is just to catch us up on the budget to what it's really been running at, and to finally get that number straight. So when you add all those up, you get that $888,000 increase, which, as you can see, is really two areas. It's the pay and benefits based off of that budgeted number. It's the inmate medical, and everything else is very small by comparison. So that's the expense side of things. That's not the really uncertain side. The really uncertain side going into this year's budget, as the sheriff mentioned, is on the revenue side. We're seeing declines steadily in the Marshal Service. We're seeing ICE inmates drop down to very, very little. We're not going to be able to do work release in the coming year. And we're not going to be booking any dollars. We're not going to be booking any dollars at all for inmates from other counties. So that's a big drop of $400,000 on the revenue side. We do put in the 4% tax cap increase. And then here's one of the really uncertain numbers well, it's not so much uncertain for the coming year, but it's very uncertain after that. And that is the state funding, which is that 3742, which is the same in the coming year as it'll be for the next year. We know that when the new legislation kicks in, it should cause a healthy boost to that revenue from the state. But we also know it's not going to impact us in the coming year. on a bunch of different fronts on the revenue side, it's entirely possible that we're going to have help around the corner here. If we can get staffing back to a place where we can possibly take inmates from other counties, that dollar figure might come back in future years. Or we're going to have to adjust our staffing levels. But we don't know the answer to either of those. And that's where I come back to, this is a very transitional budget. There's a lot of pieces in the air here, and a lot of areas within the jail that, quite frankly, just aren't running like they would normally run due to the staffing levels, due to the pandemic levels. And so we've got a budget, we've got actuals that will sometimes deviate from that. The thing that I think everyone might be looking at here is there is a use of fund balance in here of $698,000. That is what we are proposing for the coming year to make this budget balance. That is a very large number. The hope, and there is reason to believe that we can hope, that we will not have to use all of that number. And that because this year's budget has so many variables up in the air and so many things that will be different when we get into the 23-24 budget, that's why we're doing this, knowing that it's not going to cause us to get stuck the next year, because there's just so many variables up in the air. That's why we are comfortable doing this, as opposed to the only other place where really we could go after it, which would be to cut those budgeted staffing levels, which we know would really get us the following year. So conceptually, that's this year's budget. It's definitely, I feel like I'm back in, say, 2015. That feels like the last time we've had a budget with this many balls in the air. But in essence, that's the current year jail budget as we're presenting it. Hope that all worked out.
Just to reiterate, there's enough money in the budget for the medical.
We have, yes.
And what about the increase we're getting in fuel costs? Because the sheriff's department is very mobile.
This is jail, not sheriff.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I mean, they do have fuel costs, but
Yeah,
they're very
sorry.
small by comparison.
And I can probably answer that is, right now, because the court is still ramping up activity, we're not doing a lot of transports, so anything is between jails and doctor's office.
No, I was thinking of your deputies on the road, that's a different department.
Yes, I have a question. Didn't we talk, was it last year something with the new food co-op? Or did I?
So we have a vendor.
Would you like to get to the mic?
Oh, yeah.
So we have a vendor that we use in order to get the cheapest
Yeah.
buying power. So that's what we use currently right now. It's Trinity Service.
So how are
They're going up, I mean, it's just
they're
like
going
the-
up also,
yeah.
but not as bad as if you were
No,
going else?
if
Okay,
we went
okay.
directly towards like one of the locals,
Yeah.
we'd be paying more money.
Well, okay. And that's working out and everything is
Yep.
good there? Okay.
I mean, they did have, during the pandemic, they did
Right.
have some challenges with getting access to products, but they've come up with alternatives.
Okay. I thought that we had done that. Commissioner Cloutier.
Can you scroll back up to the wages and salaries and overtime line? I used to be able to do math in my head, but now, not so great. But it looks like our projected expenses are in the 9.8 between those two items, the salaries and wages and the overtime. And then we're looking at over 11.2 or 3.
What's he talking about?
Maybe more like, yeah, about that. Does that, I mean, I understand we frankly don't know what's gonna happen now, and we've got so many moving parts that what might happen
Oh, okay. Oh,
has a vast range, and we gotta pass a budget, and what you've presented looks fine to me. I'm just wondering, what do you judge the impact to be if we're able to quickly staff back up to where we have budgeted, as opposed to continue to struggle and maybe get there in a year, or maybe get most of the way in a year, something like that? Have you got a working ratio in your head that tells you the cash outcomes as a result of that?
Yes.
Do you dare to say it
So
while
we
we're
are.
being televised?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you dare to say it while we're being televised?
Oh, it would probably just sound like I'm speaking in tongues, to be honest.
Good
Yeah.
answer.
No, we are well below that number, and we're running so far below. That's why you see those actual projections, that you sort of do a double take on them, because we are running so incredibly short at the jail right now. It won't take that many employees for that number to start approaching more normal numbers, but we've got a ways to go before we get there. There's a certain point, to be honest, when they get down where it can actually cause the budget to go over a little bit, when they're down just some but not way down. And then as they get very, very close to budget, that's when things start to work out correctly. Unfortunately, I've been here long enough, I've seen all the various phases. This is a new and very uncertain one.
So it just looks like we had projected, we were like $1 million up on overtime and $2 million down on wage and salary, and we're kind of reversing that now. So reversing that is the impact that we hope to achieve by restaffing. Is that the
Yes.
idea? Yeah, okay. Well, actually, frankly, although it costs us some money, I hope we make it, but we've tried that before, so. Yeah, okay, well, thanks.
So does anybody else have any other questions or concerns with the budget?
What's the current count on shortage at the jail?
64.
Good question.
It seems like the magic number.
Yeah.
I mean, that's corrections officers, that's straight
Right.
out corrections.
Well,
And this is a problem, Jim, that's consistent throughout at least this part of the state, right? So.
Everyone's in need of corrections officers.
Am I guessing correctly, if nothing changes, then the fund balance requirement that we're talking about probably is a lot less? Yeah.
It's our hopes that we also move that fund balance that we're putting into this budget to balance it back into fund balance at the end of next year.
okay.
So I move passage of this.
Second.
If no other further discussion, I call for the vote to approve the county with jail budget for 2022 and 2023. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, well, moving on to item number 22-061 with Jim.
I don't have is that the?
The approval of the interlocal agreement
Yes.
between the city of Westbrook and Cumberland County
Thank you. I
Sheriff's
buried
Office.
my agenda here under my desk somewhere, and I haven't been able to find it.
Oh, you have a desk?
Unfortunately, this item is not quite there yet. We put it on the agenda in hopes that we would have our legal counsel bless it before commissioner action. Unfortunately, the city of Westbrook is a client of Jensen Beard, as well as we are, and for our attorney to be able to review it, she needed to have the city of Westbrook waive
Conflict of interest.
Thank you. Conflict of interest. And she has not heard back from the city of Westbrook. And so we were unable to get clear guidance from her. It's my hopes that we will get that done sooner than later and get this back on an upcoming agenda. But I'd ask for you to postpone this item to or table the item to another meeting.
I move we table.
Have a second?
Yeah, okay, a second. I just wanted
No
to
further
I just wanted to
discussion.
ask a question about
Oh.
it, that's all.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the question is, what's the long-term plan? What happens when they sell this building is the write-up said.
I guess we address it then, you know, they think that probably they're gonna hold on to it for about 3 years to make sure that the building that they're building across the street is up and running, and maybe then that piece of land, from what I understand, may be more valuable. So, right now, we're just getting it undercover and work on the future.
Okay, okay, I'm confused. So what is this in regards to?
What were you talking about, the interlocal
This is,
agreement?
housing the command vehicle.
Oh,
for the
okay,
sheriff's office.
gotcha. Okay, gotcha,
We've been
okay.
working with the city of Westbrook on storing it in a former fire department building downtown
Okay.
Westbrook.
Okay, so we would table that to a further meeting. Okay. Okay, well, moving on is 22-062. Just 62, 63, and 64, Jim, those are all like combined, you know, those are all one? Or is it different items?
They are
that we
different
have to-
items, all led by HR bringing them forward.
Okay.
But we can go quickly down through them, those
Okay,
three.
yep, okay.
062 is an amendment to our administrative regulations, adding an Appendix F3, which is titled Response to Workplace-Related Incidents of Sexual Misconduct, Domestic Violence, and Dating Violence. As the commissioners have seen over the last year, 2 years, the federal government is asking for more and more policies or guiding documents to be inserted as part of our protocols here at the county as recipients of many different forms of federal funds. This is no different. This is language handed down from the federal government associated with Fay Lupe's Domestic Violence Intervention Program. And it's, I wouldn't say a request, they pretty much told us that we needed to have it in place for us to be eligible in the future for the continued recipients of federal funds. And so these three items have been put in as an appendix because they are related to other policies that we have adopted around federal grants. And that's where they have been located in Appendix F. And this is just the third one. One item that I'd like to address is on page 2 of the document. Commissioner Gorden called earlier today, having some
Heartburn.
around some language. And I'd like to read the language, and I'd like to read how we mitigated Commissioner Gordon's concern, and I'd ask for the commissioners to amend this document through a vote so that you can insert this, the word, and then approve it after that. And it is on page 2, under 5A1, and it reads, non-discrimination and non-retaliation. Cumberland County will not discharge or in any manner discriminate or retaliate against an employee because of the employee's status of a survivor of domestic violence, sexual violence, or stalking if the survivor provides notice to the organization of the status or the organization has actual knowledge of the status. Commissioner relayed a concern that would protect the employee from discipline or discharge based on the work they were providing because they were a part of this protective class, in a sense. I think staff brought forth a single word to be inserted that not only appeased staff, but also appeased Commissioner Gorden. And that is to add solely. So it would now read, non-discrimination and non-retaliation. Cumberland County will not discharge or in any manner discriminate or retaliate against an employee solely because of the employee's status as a survivor of domestic violence, blah, blah, blah. So I'd ask for the commissioners to consider adding solely into that paragraph so it can be more clearer stated, and then move to accept the document if it's appropriate by the commissioners. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move that we amend the language in paragraph 5A, small I, on page 2 of the document, to add the word solely, as County Manager Gailey pointed out.
Second.
Just as a comment, I'm not sure it makes that much difference, but I'm not going to oppose doing it. I'm not sure that.
I've been sitting here trying to figure that out myself.
Yeah,
I think
I mean,
you're
I was trying to figure out whether it made it worse, but I don't think it does. I think.
Yeah, I think it's all right either way.
In my view, it's neutral, and
Right.
if it makes.
Yeah.
If
I'll tell you what my.
this is a concern, then I'm happy to.
I'll tell you what my concern was, is that the way I read it is that for discharge or instead of and. So there were separate items.
Don, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I think that, I like the idea of adding the word solely in, personally. I think it separates the fact that we would not, first of all, we do have the right, they are protected class in this case, but we do have the right as an employer to discharge or meter out discipline for lack of performance or behavior issues. And they must be able to perform all the essential duties of their job, either with or without an accommodation. So I think in this case, there are a number of, we would be very sensitive to the situation here. In these instances, we would offer any number of reasonable accommodations which are listed here in this proposal. So I think that, no, we cannot discriminate because somebody who is a victim of domestic violence or is being stalked, their work performance is suffering because of that. You would take that all into consideration when you're meeting with the employee, offering counseling, giving them any other workplace accommodations. But I think if it was not related, you still could go through just cause and due process. We would not necessarily be unable to address performance or behavior issues separately.
Okay, if there is no other one, this vote is for the insertion of the word
Solely.
solely. Is all those in favor?
Aye. Move passage as amended.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. No further discussion? Is that call for a vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. The next item is 22-063, Jim.
This item I'd like to pass off to Dawn to take you down through section 3.3 process around our centralized hiring procedure, and this is amending the non-union personnel policy. Dawn, would you like to take it?
Thank you, Jim. These are pretty minor issues compared to some that you've addressed this evening. But since we consider our personnel policy a working document, and we knew we were bringing other items like this particular issue we just dealt with before you, this was an opportunity to bring forward a couple of other recommended amendments to a non-union personnel policy. Number B, which is in your packet, is right now, we are just going through the initial stages of trying to digitize a lot of our personnel files, employee files. Storage space is at a premium. The current section under our hiring process, section 3.3B, states that HR will retain application forms and other related associated documents of candidates not hired for up to 2 years. That exceeds the statute requirements that we need to maintain those application forms and other associated documents. And according to the statute, Maine Human Rights Commission Regulation 3.03 only requires us to retain those for 1 year. So we're recommending that we amend that section to say that we will only retain we will only retain documents for 1 year of unsuccessful candidates that we do not hire. And obviously, nothing will change in terms of the application form and other such things as resumes of a candidate hired, a successful candidate. That goes into that personnel policy, and we need to retain that in perpetuity. So this is really a case of meeting the standard, the statute, and save some storage space and become compliant. Section D, we were before you probably sometime earlier this year, or it might have been later last year, when we were dealing with all the myriad of COVID administration. And we did, the commissioners did mandate that as a condition of employment, all new hires would be fully vaccinated for COVID-19. Well, since that time, and we have been requiring that, and it's been working well, but since that time, between now and then, the definition of fully vaccinated has changed multiple times. So what made sense was to amend this language to be a little bit more flexible in that the definition of being fully vaccinated would be defined by the Maine CDC, whose definition is subject to change, and whatever that definition would be the one we would follow. And it goes on to, as you can read, it goes on to basically say, this is really from the Maine CDC, frequently asked questions and guidelines. So what they're recommending is that, the new definition now includes being boosted. And depending upon different age groups, the boosting might mean 1 or 2 boosts. Like my age group, they're recommending 2 booster shots. So what we're putting in here now is that you're up to date with your COVID-19 vaccines when you have received all the doses in the primary series, whether it's Pfizer, Moderna, or J&J, Janssen vaccine, and which would also include all boosters recommended for you. So this, we won't have to keep coming back to the commissioners every time the definition changes of what's fully vaccinated and boosted. So hopefully we don't have to deal with this much longer. It is turning around, thankfully, but so we're recommending that you would support both of these amendments to our personnel policy.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, okay, Tom?
I have a question. I'm not looking for an amendment, but I just want to, up on the first one in B, where we're talking about retaining and then but certainly discarding after 1 year, are we actually careful about actually discarding that stuff?
Yeah, that would be confidentially shredded.
Okay. I mean, the reason I ask is a lot of companies will have a policy about shredding old files, and then they don't do it, they don't do it, they don't do it, until they get sued, and then suddenly they shred everything they've had, and that looks very bad if that's what's happening. But if you're doing it all the time anyway, and then 3 weeks later you get a suit on that when you say, well, it was, this is routine. We didn't pick this one out to do it. We just routinely did it. So I just want to check to make sure we're doing it. Otherwise, this looks great.
We had a
Bins are a boring gray, so you wouldn't notice them, but
What's
they're
that?
right there.
Yeah.
Did we have a second on it?
Yes.
Did you second? Okay. If there's no other further discussion, I call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Are you going to bring us back in 6 months for a monkeypox vaccine?
I don't know. I hope not.
Don's not gonna be doing that.
That's an easy answer.
Chair,
Jim.
before we move on, could I recommend that we take, as you all know, this agenda was amended to include the jail health services contract. Can we take 065 out of order and just flip it up before 064? That would allow the sheriff and the major to jump ship and get on with their night and not have to sit through us going into executive session
And
for
then coming out.
the communications collective bargaining agreement.
It's really scary, Jim, when you start to think like me. I was going to suggest that. Okay, we are going to change it to the request of the county manager. So is item 22-065, amending with the jail service contract. Jim, is that you or Alex or the sheriff?
It could be any one of us. Alex is the
major?
front person on
Okay.
it, so he probably could kick it off.
And apologies for getting this in so late. This came in, I believe, Friday of last week, and typically we'd have pushed it to July, but we were talking jail budget tonight, and it's also coming right up at the change, so that's why we inserted it at the last minute there. This is the seventh, believe it or not, amendment to the armor budget already. And that's largely because there've been a bunch of smaller ones for things like the vaccination incentive, some of the other ARPA increases we've done. But this is the true next year increase from them. It's not anything in here that is going to shock anyone. It's wage increases. The one that sort of opened our eyes a little bit was a very large increase on the malpractice insurance. I mentioned when I asked about that, that is what's been occurring, is any place that's a congregate care facility is seeing rather large increases in their insurance costs, and that is because those places do tend to have a higher prevalence of COVID outbreaks, and that's driving their insurance costs up disproportionately, which is just one of those many unforeseen effects of the past couple of years. So that being said, that's pretty much what it is. This is something we've alluded to in prior years, and we're recommending passage, and we continue on with armor,
Okay.
unless Sheriff or Jim.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? Second, okay. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. So before we go into executive session, with Jim, do we want to ask the executive staff if they have anything to add, for comments? Because if we come back out, well, they won't be here, and they might have something of
Sure.
importance.
Sure.
Are we saving 64 until after the executive session?
Well, 64, we go into executive
Oh,
session.
I got it,
Yeah.
I got it, yeah, sorry. A little
Okay.
dense.
So we're gonna maybe change this up a little bit and do the executive with staff or comments, because we are gonna go into executive session. Do you have anything, Alex?
No comments at this time.
Okay. Dawn, we'll see you. Amy? No? The sheriff?
Only a couple. The summer contracts are starting up, so we're going to be picking those up at Chebeague Island, Long Island, Fry Island, and then Naples Causeway. You'll see tonight, a little delayed, but 3 of our deputies responded 2 weeks ago to an 11-year-old kid that, when they got there, was in cardiac arrest. They did CPR, brought him back. He went back, out, did CPR again. Raymond, both of their rescue units were out, so, handling other calls, that's typical in rural Cumberland County. So thankfully, the deputies did CPR until either Wyndham or Casco could get there as mutual aid to transport the 11-year-old. I'm pleased to report that the 11-year-old is home, doing well. And, so we sent out a press release today.
Yeah, I think there'll be a break.
No. So, we can talk offline, I think it's a HIPAA issue, so. But, so other than that, that's all I have.
And there's no, Travis.
One thing I'll just mention, you might remember last year, we had applied for under the new federal earmark program to upgrade the equipment at the communications center. We applied again this year, and I just received notice last week that Senator King has forwarded our application to the Appropriations Committee. responsible for that category. Senator Collins sits on that committee, so we're hopeful for this year. We'll cross our fingers, but it would be a great resource to move all of that equipment forward, including the mobile units as well. So we'll keep you posted.
Is there any other thing?
Can I take my time now?
Well, I wonder if
He might be
you,
doing the same thing you're doing.
yeah, I wonder if you're doing the same thing I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Does it have anything to do with cookies?
Yes,
Oh, okay. Can we go first and then we'll let you?
go for it.
Okay. I don't know how to start this, but with tonight, it's kind of a sad night here because it is HR director's last time with us. He has
Did we
decided.
say he could go?
Well,
Actually?
I didn't see it come across. He has decided to retire. And I think his last day is next week. And he'll be officially retired after many, many
Professional years.
professional years with South Portland and Portland, and the last 6 years with us. The commissioners and myself would like to say, well, Dawn, you will be missed, but if you ever want to come back for negotiations, I'm sure as Amy would love to have you. And you're always welcome, I want to come back, and you're going to be some hard shoes to fill. We wish you well. We wish you a whole bunch of family time. You're going to have the summer off, as in Maine, as in Wiscasset, and we wish you well.
Yeah.
If there's any other more comments from the rest of the commissioners, and then we can.
I just want to say, long before I got here, I knew Don was the class act. He was at the city of Portland for a long time before he went over to South Portland, so, and he did a great job in Portland, and was very much admired and well-liked, so. We're going to miss you around here, Don.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for all your efforts and really bringing us to the next level in this area. And you've done a great job, and Amy's going to take care of things.
Yeah, I think Southport was almost forgiven us for poaching. They actually were friendly with me when I went in there.
I'd like to make sure that Dawn understands that a lot of people outside this organization, other organizations that you've given advice to, have always spoken highly of our fortune to have you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and an honor to work here.
Yeah. And Amy, all you have to do is to let me know with what you like in cookies, and you can have old cookies for your ride home.
All right, I'll let you know.
Okay. And now, with Jim, I know we stole your thunder,
Yeah, well, you
but-
took all the thunder out of my sails here.
Well,
Well, as you know, it is Don's last 2 weeks on the job, and we're going to get everything out of him as possible. As you notice, a number of items are on this evening's agenda, as he is quickly trying to get everything off his desk. It goes without saying that Don has been valuable to our organization. I was thrilled to bring him to South Portland when I was the manager in South Portland, and I was even more thrilled when he called and said, hey, I understand you have an HR job, over. Can we meet on that? And it was quickly brought over. He came to county. And so a lot has changed over the last 6 years. A lot of good things have changed. And he's put us on a good, solid foundation to move forward. So thank you, Don, for all your work. You know, I received this email from an individual who responded to my announcement, and the individual couldn't have said it better, and I'd like to read it. And I'll leave the individual's name out of it for witness protection program. I have to say this is terrible news to hear, but congratulations, Don, on a well-deserved retirement. As you know, I've been with the county for a long time. Some would say, arguably say, too long. During his time with the county, Don has been incredibly influential and largely responsible for starting a culture change for county government. Don has positively impacted every department, and I believe that this was practically an impossible feat. Yes, there is much more work to do, but Don started the movement, and it is our responsibility to build on his momentum. As you know, the county operations is far more complex and energy-consuming than anyone on the outside could possibly envision. Don's accomplishments are nothing short of fantastic. It is my experience Don has been more receptive to feedback and far more considerate of other points of view than all prior HR directors combined. His professionalism, calmness, experience, and articulate communications will be sorely missed. I wish he'd stay for another 10 years. We will all learn a lot from him, and I'm truly sad to see him go. Don has set the bar for others to follow. So, then,
Sheriff, would you like to say something, or?
Well, actually, I sent Dawn a card.
Oh, okay, well,
You know, when I found out, yeah, I will say that Dawn has brought a sense of working for the employee, you know, somebody that's well thought out. So, you know, it's his gain, our loss, but everything that he's worked for is now on his doorstep, and, you know, congratulations on a great retirement, and you've got a group that, behind you that can cover for you, but your shoes will be hard to fill. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay. We will be going into executive session.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. Is all those in favor?
Aye.
So do we want to take 5? And then,
5 and 3 over me.
yep, take 5, yep.
Take it anyway, but.
You guys.
you're on.
Okay.
There you go.
Do I have a motion to come out of executive session?
Madam Chair, I move we come out of executive session.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of coming out of executive session?
Aye.
Okay. We are out of executive session, and we will continue with our,
We have to
We
approve.
gotta take a motion to approve the contract.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the 3-year collective bargaining agreement between the Cumberland County Commissioners and the Communications Association.
second. Okay. I call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Jim, we have another executive session.
We do?
We do, Jim. Apparently, okay. Apparently you didn't read, Jim.
Halfway down the hallway.
Yeah. Okay.
I didn't put my hat on. That's the-
Do I have a motion?
Well,
What?
before we do that,
Oh.
are we coming back afterwards?
No.
For the public? I mean, 'cause
I
there-
do not
there are people
think-
listening, so my point is, before we make the motion to go into executive session and turn anything off, we might want to tell people that we're not going to come back and do anything other than
Well,
adjourn the meeting.
I don't think that we,
You're going to do these and then...
okay, do we want to do the comments and all of that, and then we can let the public know? Or would you want to come?
Any commissioners have anything else to say that we haven't said tonight already?
No.
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 Okay, so,
Nothing to say.
okay. Okay, do I,
Well,
we
you got
will-
the- you got the manager, you might want to ask him. You got-
manager, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good. I said what I needed to say.
Okay, good, okay. We will not be coming, we're back on, is once we go into executive session and come out of executive session, that we will not be returning to the meeting. Okay. Do I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the evaluation of our county manager?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favor of executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
I really thought we couldn't get you to move, John. I thought you would have been out of the door by now.